Hi, I'm John Walker from Cancer, and I'll see you at the Tampa Morgue.
What's up? This is Tony, and you're listening to the Tampa Morgue Season 2, Episode number 83. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host from a studio in Tampa, Florida, the one and only Mr. Ed Webb. How is life in the land of swamps, palm trees, and gators?
Mr. Anderson, what is up, brother?
Another day in the morgue, man. Episode 83. A little windy here, so if anybody hears, some wind in the background, that's outside the studio here. How's everything going with you, man? I know the wife's been away for a while, so she comes home tomorrow?
She does. 4:20 in the morning, I got to pick her ass up at the airport. I love you, honey. But I don't love you at 4:20 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's... How long was she gone for?
She left last Monday at 10 at night, so 9 days. She's been in Vegas watching Magic Mike shows, and dude, some of the pictures she shows me of like this alcohol. I mean, her and her sister went out one night. And
the pink drinks and the blue drinks.
Drinks between her two kids, because they're old enough now, and my wife and her sister, $285. And I was like, do you know what I could do with $285? It's not drinking. I can promise you that. Fuck that. I mean, she spent, the money because Vegas is not cheap. You know what I mean? You can find cheap. I did when we played there.
It used to be if you went to those casinos, you can get the cheaper drinks because they wanted you to be kind of drunk to gamble.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we had when we stayed, our hotel was, you had to walk through the casino. And I remember walking through like at 1 a.m, and it was literally like people playing slots and doing their stupid shit. And then you go out the next morning for breakfast and those people are asleep at the fucking, the machines because I've been there all night. It's crazy to see that stuff.
I've been to Vegas, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times. And it's exactly like you said, some of those casinos you would stay at, you would wake up and those same people are still
Yeah.
drinking and gambling, smoking cigarettes. It's
Oh,
like 8 in the
that was the
morning, 9
worst
in the
part,
morning.
man, was the smoke, walking through that thing, and it was like walking through fog. It's terrible. But I mean, I don't know, man. I guess you wait for that lucky you wait for that lucky
Ed,
thing
you've
to
never
hit,
been
you
a
know what I
smoker,
mean?
right?
Never. Well, not cigarettes. I was a weed head for many, many years until probably just after Bryce was born. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I've hung out with you for many, many years, man. And I remember like maybe like once or twice where I've gotten you to like smoke a little bit, but man, it's
Motorhead.
rare, dude.
I was fucking
Motorhead,
torched at
that's right.
Motorhead in the parking lot. I was fucking
That's
torched.
right.
And then we went and ate and met up with my cousin and saw Lemmy before he passed away. So that was a fun night.
Yeah, that was a great show, but I know you're not one for to
It's
partake.
not that it's not that I don't like I have some kind of anti thing against it. It's just I had such a tolerance because I smoked since I was 15 years old. You know what I mean? Till Bryce was born, 22 years ago. So I don't know. I just once I stopped, and then I remember we were going up to see Slipknot or somebody up in Orlando, and I was with Tristan's dad, and I remember smoking, and I got so paranoid, and that's what I don't like is when I start overthinking shit. Because before it would just be like another thing. I mean, it is what it is. You do it. I was actually, I didn't want to beat people up when I smoked. I literally was calm. It was like when I did martial arts. It was just, I was
Yeah, it's
always
totally
calm.
different than drinking. I mean,
Yeah, I was always calm, and nobody got on my nerves. Nobody really pushed me to the limit because you could talk stuff, and I would just be like laughing at you because it was just, I wasn't a fast time at Ridgemont High guy, but I was definitely just, it just kept me, it was my Prozac. You know what I mean? It was just kept me even keeled. And I don't know. When I stopped, I started to get like paranoid sometimes if I smoked, especially if it was like really killer weed. Bryce has been trying hard. He's been begging hard. I did last year when we were on vacation, and I think they were all, I mean, they were all just like, I mean, you might as well had a fire and they were all doing an Indian dance around it like it was some kind of ceremony.
it's an event.
Yeah, man, it was. But yeah, no, I don't. I thought about it, man, because I realized I was in the best shape of my life when I did. Honestly, that's a fact. I just was. So I think I've been considering it again, especially since
Especially
I'm
Florida
my
now, because
health
there's
is
dispensaries. Like I know when I went back to Florida,
everywhere.
there's a dispensary on every corner.
And they're also saying now that you don't even need a card. You don't even need a card now at certain places. Like they're just
Oh, see, that's great.
so because I can't get a card because I have a concealed weapons permit, which is stupid.
Yeah, you can
I could
drink,
go buy
you could do all
I
that
could go
stuff,
buy
but you can't.
alcohol and get wasted and go shoot somebody up, but yet if I smoke weed and I'm going 20 when I'm supposed to be going 50 in my car, that's a problem. You know what I mean? I mean it's like
Yes.
so ass backwards. I don't understand it.
Yeah, what was it? You got to be like 21 to drink, but you can go die in the war at 18.
18, yeah, exactly.
Odd
So yeah,
shit.
and you don't
You
think those
know,
dudes are at 18 when they're out there? They're getting hammered. You know what I mean? It's
that.
I don't know, stupid.
It's a crazy world, as we always say. But here on the morgue, we're gonna take you all away from that for a little while. And as we opened up the show with the band Cancer, we actually played the song "Cancer, Fucking Cancer" CFC from To the Gory End from 1990 that came out on Vinyl Solution Records. And we're actually going to be joined by John Walker tonight from Cancer, Liquid Graveyard. Ed, Cancer obviously goes way back. And I know you were a fan of the band too growing up.
I was. I remember I was at Aces when that record came out, and I picked it up literally the weekend it came out. I don't know who told me about it, but I remember somebody saying there's a band called Cancer, and the name right there was just like, that's a cool name. So, and I remember seeing the picture, which you have on your little thing you've showed me a
Yeah,
bunch of
it's a
times.
Tom Savini, obviously from the movies they took that from. But yeah, I'm gonna pull that down and we'll show that to. I have a portrait of the actual image from the cover, so we'll take that down and we're gonna talk to John tonight. I remember, when I first heard of Cancer was in high school. Like you said, I was drawn to the cover right away. But yeah, we're gonna have John on tonight, and Ed, we also. We have tickets to give away too. You want to mention that the Jeff Tate tickets on the Instagram?
Yeah, Operation Mindcrime. I think this is the last time he's playing that in full. That's what I'm hearing. This is the last time he's going to do
That's
it
what
on
they
this
say.
tour.
Yeah, this is the end right here.
Yeah, it's at Ruth Eckerd Hall, the actual Ruth Eckerd Hall, which is killer. They're all killer. I haven't been to the Billheimer, but so far the Baycare Sound, and I've been to Ruth Eckerd many times. Great venue for this. What, April 4th?
Yeah, Friday, April 4th. Jeff
Yep.
Tate's Operation Mindcrime.
And it's definitely going to be a killer show because Queensryche, I was telling Bryce, when I used to deliver newspapers, the kid whose mom ran the newspaper, he was a nerd, but I hung out with him only because I wanted to hang out with his brother, who lived up. If you remember in New Jersey, usually the upstairs was where you threw the older brother.
It's an older brother. Teenagers
Yep.
got to go up there. Yeah.
Yep. And I remember we would go up there, and he showed me Queen of the Reich, and I never heard anything like that. This Tate's vocals were so high, and like it stuck with me. And I've always been a Queensryche fan. I think they're one of those bands that could go heavy when they want to, but then be radio friendly as well. Obviously,
I think you saw that with the Empire record, right? That was when
Correct.
they started getting that I mean, I remember
I
that.
think the end of Operation, some of the songs on Mindcrime were a little, because they had Mindcrime and then Mindcrime 2, and they were both kind of where there were heavy songs, and then there were the ones that were, I hate to use the word ballad, but that's kind of what they were, right? But
yeah,
it's definitely
like
going to be
Lucidity was kind of that. Also going over to the Empire period was like the.
But it was done. They always knew how to write a song, and I've seen video of Tate. I haven't seen Tate by himself. I've seen Queensryche with Todd, and I'm anxious. I want to see, especially if he's doing Operation Mindcrime. I think that's going to be killer. So yeah, definitely. If you want to see it for free, hit us up on the Instagram or can they send us emails on that, or is it just Instagram?
There's a whole, like, if you go to our Instagram, you'll see the photo with the ticket information on there, and you gotta follow the page and tag and all that stuff, and then but I think we're gonna have that contest only going up for a few more days, but that is like you said, Friday, April 4th, Jeff Tate's Operation Mindcrime at Ruth Eckerd Hall. We have that going on. And I think, we try to keep the show. I remember last week we're like, we're going to try to keep the show under 3 hours, which is never really happens. But so we're going to try to do that, and again, like I said, we have a guest tonight. We didn't announce it last week because we wanted to make sure everything was signed, sealed, and delivered. So, that is, I also want to thank Daniel, the bassist for Cancer, for helping us a little bit set this up. He used to play in a band called Teething. He also played in like a graveyard, did live stuff with John, over in Spain, which is another thing too, is we've actually, which we'll talk about with John, we actually never had anybody from Spain on the show yet. And now we've had 2 weeks in a row because we had Luisma from Hemorrhage and Depopulation Department on episode 82 last week from Madrid also. So, just a coincidence, but yeah, the last 2 weeks have been Madrid. We've been focused on.
Killer. Good.
Yeah. So, Ed, obviously there's a bunch of stuff going on in the Tampa area. We'll mention some releases, and then we'll get John Walker on from Cancer. So I guess we'll start with the shows. I kind of broke up the shows a little bit, so I'll announce the ones going on in the next 2 weeks, pretty much. And then because I was like, when I was looking, sometimes I'll announce shows that are a couple months, like a month ahead, only when they're just first announced. But we're going to kind of keep it, to keep the under 3 hour mark possibly. And I tried to put them in order today, which I'm sure they will not be, but I tried to do that also. So let me see here. Give me 1 second to pick through this stuff here, like usual. Okay, so I kind of have these shows in order, Ed. I'm going to start with, which is actually tomorrow. Probably when everyone's listening to this, it'll probably be tomorrow because the show will be up Thursday, March 27th. Exhorter, Hakaleon, Verlins, Restless Spirit, and Ramtha at the Brass Mug. Doors at 6. I know Exhorter played last night at the Conduit. I think they're playing the 26th at Gramps in Miami, but this is the Mug show we're talking about, so that'll be Thursday, March 27th, which will be tomorrow. Friday, March 28th, Offensive, Maryland thrash metal band, Amitropa from Pennsylvania, extreme metal band, Vital Pain, and Precipice will be playing at the Brass Mug. That's Friday, March 28th. All ages show. Doors at 7, $10 tickets. Saturday, March 29th, at a place called the Dunes. It's the same. It's Offensive, Endorus, Amitropa, and that is Medusa March Madness Tour 2025. $10 cover, age 21 up. Doors at 7, show at 7:30. The Dunes is located at 34 South Atlantic Ave, Cocoa Beach, Florida. And Saturday, March 29th also. This is going to be in Port St. Lucie. It's Mortician, Implosive Disgorgence, Mind Virus at Three Tides Restaurant and Bar, 21 and up, doors at 6 p.m. Again, that's at Three Tides Restaurant and Bar in Port St. Lucie. That's brought to you by Dead Dreams Booking. So let me see here. Saturday, April 5th at the Mutiny, Vacuous Depths, Killing Addiction, Ramtha. Doors at 8 p.m., $5 tickets. That's Saturday, April 5th. I think that's all I had. I have one more that I did skip, which is March 30th. Demon Fuck, Death of a Deity, Blown Apart, and Double Crossed at the Conduit. That's Sunday, March 30th. $15 in advance, $20 day of show, 18 and up. Doors at 7 p.m. See here. That's brought to you by Violent Death Records. And that is Sunday, March 30th at the Conduit. So that's what I have for shows. Try not to butcher those up too much.
I got two. Well, actually, one. One's not a show. I don't know if you saw this or not. April 6th at the Orpheum. If you want to be in the Inhuman Condition video, you show up at the Orpheum.
I did see this.
And you can be in the video with all the cool cats in Inhuman Condition. Jeremy, Taylor, Mr. Terry Butler. I don't know who the drummer is. I don't know if it's the same kid who was on the boat, but if it is, he's killer. So yeah, 4 p.m. sharp, show up at the Orpheum, and you can be in an Inhuman Condition video, which I thought was pretty fucking cool. Maybe I'll be there.
That's cool.
Maybe I'll be there. I got one more. I don't know if you saw this one, but Cancer Slug. Remember Cancer Slug?
Oh shit, I did see this. That's the Orpheum too, right?
2nd,
With Abortion
April
Twins?
2nd at the Orpheum. Yes, sir. I mean, that's I haven't heard that name in a long time, but the bands that are playing, the Lot Lizards, I mean, come on, man. That's a great name for a fucking band.
And Abortion Twins are playing that
and the
too,
Abortion Twins. Yep. 7 p.m. Wednesday, April 2nd at the Orpheum. Under 18 must be accompanied by an adult or a legal guardian.
We played with them. I don't know if were you with us when we played with them? We played with them at the original Brass Mug with Cancer Slug.
I did. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they're great. I think Alex Story's great, man. I would love to get him on the show.
I like when he was doing stuff with Doyle. I thought when he was singing for Doyle's band was killer. So yeah, great dude, nice guy. I mean,
great voice.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So when I saw Cancer Slug, I was like, holy shit, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. So
I saw they were playing too, and I think I saw it last week, and I was like, damn it, man, because that's a show I would, if I was in the area, I would definitely go to.
I'm considering it because I haven't seen Cancer Slug in dude, I maybe it was that show. It might have been that.
I wonder if Jack Goodwin's playing with them because he's been in,
I didn't see
he's
him
done
in the
stuff
picture.
with Cancer Slug.
The picture I saw was just Alex and two chicks. So I don't know what that means, but
okay, yeah, killer band though. Anybody gets, if you haven't heard Cancer Slug, check them out, and definitely worth seeing live. So that's that. All the shows you have, Ed?
Yes, that's all I had because Belphegor played the other day.
I saw that. Yes, at the Orpheum. I saw some of the video online. It's been a very. There was Hell's Heroes. We saw everybody at. It's funny. We know, Ed. We always say, like, you can always tell if you're not at an event and someone else is. You kind of like when the cruises happen, right? You always know because there's millions of pictures up. It's like it's overload. And then Hell's Heroes was the same way. Just tons and tons of pictures from the event. Everyone hanging out and partying, which looks like a great time. But you definitely knew what was going on this weekend because I saw tons of shit from Hell's Heroes.
Yes. Kyle
Nasty Savage played.
Between Kyle and
Death Metal Dave was there.
It was like when you see, Kyle posted 426 pictures. You're like, all right, go Kyle, which is cool, man, because that's what you're supposed to do, really.
Hyrex was there. I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like I saw pictures from the stage, and I'm like, man, I would love to play those kind of shows, because those are the kind, like I've told you before, when we played the Maryland Death Fest, when it used to be at the Edison lot, because I took a picture and I did the 360 picture on my phone where it pans from left to right, and people were like, "Dude, that's not real crowd." Yeah, it is, because the Edison crowd. Remember, there's 2 stages, so it goes from left to right, and yeah, it was like packed, like you would like the kind of show that you enjoy playing.
And that was the lot, right, when Autopsy was playing. The
Correct.
guy was performing
They played
Cunnilingus.
they played the next day. Yeah, they played the same stage we did. So I
Yeah.
mean, the crowd is again, it's just a great that type of stage and that type of crowd is always great. When I saw it, I was like, man, that would I've heard
Looked like a
Hell's
great
Heroes is
time.
always great. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we talked about that. So I guess what we'll do is releases, and we'll get to John. I'm sure people are, if you came here for the Cancer interview with John, you're waiting for that. So we're gonna bang out the releases. I kind of split them up. I did kind of the releases that were coming out in the next 2 weeks. The other ones I'll announce the next show. Because we've been kind of every show we announce underground releases that are coming out and stuff. So I'll do this here. I got a list. Let me see. I'll start out in Tampa, actually, because I did notice Endoris from Tampa. It's a death groove metal band. They have an EP coming out called Summoning the Endbringer. It's an independent release. They have that coming out March 28th. I did see also, which we've talked about this. We've mentioned this band a few times on our show because they're always on the show list. They're from St. Pete, actually, a band called Ramtha. They put out an EP called Through Eyes of Death on March 21st. I think that's the release date. 8 tracks, 5 studio, 3 live. The label Morbid Subculture. They put out an EP in 2003 called Void Tyrant also. But that's Ramtha with the EP Through Eyes of Death. So then we'll go to, let me see here, Crawling Chaos from Italy, a death grind metal band. Weird is the name of the album. Weird as the old English word for fate. Label is Time to Kill Records out of Italy. Crawling Chaos formed in 2003. First release was 2008. An EP called Goat Suckers. This will be the band's 3rd full length. And the Weird album comes out March 28th. Witch Cult out of New Zealand, stoner doom band. So the name of the record, I actually had to go look into this a little bit. The name of the record was Support Local Business. I went and looked at the cover. Cover was like this, I don't know, this, it's an image, like a person praying, and there's a church outside the window. I was looking at some of the name of the tracks just because the name Support Local Business kind of intrigued me. Some of the songs were like Jesus Rodriguez, Back When People and Trees Were Friends, Long Beef, some of the song titles. So I had to look into that, but they're from New Zealand. They're called Witch Cult. And Stealth out of Italy. It's a heavy metal band. Metal Force is the name of the record that's coming out. Label Witches Brew out of Germany. Stealth formed in 2019. 2 demos in 2020. Metal Force is the band's debut record. Features members past and present of Recovery Mind, Merciless Attack, Infernal Angels, and Mortal Violence. That's also March 28th. I got these in order, if you notice, for the most part tonight, Ed. Path to Deliverance from France, black metal band. Name of the record is 10. Label Malpermeista Records out of France. Totally fucking that up, I'm sure. It's the band's debut, 10 tracks. Features members past and present of Death Lab, Cave Growl, Red Sphere, and In Hell. So that comes out March 28th also. Warfield out of Germany, thrash metal band with the Old Breed is the name of this one. Label Napalm Records, band formed in 2012. It's a follow-up to the band's 2018 record, Wrecking Command. That comes out April 4th. Messiah Paratroops from Finland, death metal band. Legions of Tomorrow is the name of this record on Inverse Records out of Finland. Messiah Paratroops formed in 1989 and put out demos in 90, 91, 92, and 94, and an EP in 92, but this is the band's first full length. Legions of Tomorrow is out on April 4th. Godless out of India, a death metal band. This is the EP they're putting out called Genesis of Decay. Independent release, band formed in 2015. Godless has put out 2 EPs prior, 2016 and 2018. This will be the band's 3rd. They did put out a full length in 2021 called States of Chaos. That's also coming out on April 4th. Name of the record again, Genesis of Decay. I got a few more, and then we're going to get to John from Cancer. Benediction from the UK. They're actually going to be playing here in Lithuania at the Kilcum Festival. Ravage of Empires, that's coming out on Nuclear Blast. Benediction's 9th full-length follow-up to the band's 2020 album that was titled Scriptures. One of those bands, they actually have a few members from back in the day too, because they got Peter and Darren, who's been around since '89, and then Dave since '90. So Benediction will be putting out their 9th album, Ravage of Empires, on April 4th. Flag with 2 G's from Finland, it's a black metal band. We actually mentioned this band on a couple episodes ago. Name of the release is Diabolical Bloodlust. Label is Purity Through Fire out of Germany. They formed in 2018, but remember we talked about Flag with Jerry from the Ratu channel, because Flag was the bassist on the 2019 Annihilate Us record, Death from Above. This will be the 3rd Flag record, follow-up to 2021's Cosmic Chaos Manifest. Dart from Finland, thrash punk band. Speed Days is the name of this one. It's an independent release, 10 tracks. The band's only other release was in 2022. It was a demo. That's April 4th. And Last Omen from Budapest, power thrash speed metal band. Kelza Ima, if I'm saying that right, is the title, on H Music out of Hungary. Formed in 1990. They have 12 full lengths, and this is also out on April 4th. So, yeah, Ed, that's the releases. Actually, I forgot to mention, too, I'll be seeing God Dethroned on Saturday night, my daughter's birthday, number 6 for her. And also at that evening, me and the wife are going to see God Dethroned in Vilnius. So I'm looking forward to that. And Ed, before we get John Walker on here from Cancer, is there anything else that you can think of that we should mention?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, we'll see now.
I'd love to tell a story about cancer, but I'm not going to do that on the show. But I would love to talk about it personally. But
oh yeah, from the Tampa related. Yes, I do. Yes I do. We'll talk to John about that after we get done recording tonight, probably with him.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. But
which does nothing for anybody else who's listening. But
no, but if you were there, you were there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but we have John coming out from Cancer. And, as we always say, I'm definitely not going to go through the list tonight, but if you, we have 82 back episodes you can go listen to. Obviously, as always, we always say, interviews with Non-Slaughter, Deceased, King Fally from Deceased, Jeff Mantis from Venom, Jerry from the Ratu channel out of Finland, and, Dave Austin from Nasty Savage. We had David Howard Thornton, who played Art the Clown in the Terrifier movies. The Henry from God Dethroned, as I just was talking about them. Blaine Cook from The Accused. Right, Ed? There's a shitload of them. Vincent Corrali. We always go through the list. I feel bad if you listen to it every week, you always hear this list. But there's a shitload of interviews we've done. You can go listen to them on the Tampa Morgue, anywhere you listen to podcasts and stuff. And as we always say too, the best place to find our information is on Instagram. It's pretty much where we keep updated. You can always email us at thetampamorgue@gmail.com. And Ed, I don't know. I mean, I guess let's get to the show. What do you think?
Let's get to John.
Yeah, let's get to John Walker from Cancer, and we'll play. We'll get John set up, and we're gonna play Bloodbath from To the Gory End from the 1990 record. And Ed, let's get John on, and we'll be back on the Tampa Morgue after this song from Cancer. This is Bloodbath from 1990's To the Gory End. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue with John Walker from Cancer after this track. There you go. That was Cancer with Bloodbath. I'm off to the glory end from 1990, and we are joined by John Walker from Cancer and Liquid Graveyard. How you doing, John?
I'm good. It's Sunday, and we're chilling out.
How's your weather over there in Madrid today?
Well, we've had 4 weeks of really shitty weather, and it's kind of led up today for a little bit of sunshine, but we're still in the cold season.
We and Ed were talking about before you came on tonight, like we've been doing this show, this is our 83rd episode tonight with you, and we've done it since 2023, right, Ed? We started doing it.
Yep.
And you're actually, August 2023, and we've actually never had anybody from Spain. In the last 2 weeks, we had Luisma from Hemorrhage and Depopulation Department on, and now we got you, over in Spain too, man. So it's kind of ironic, I guess.
Yeah. Comes.
Yeah, and you're actually you were born in Telford, England, which is like 40 minutes away from Birmingham.
Well, I was actually born in Shropshire in a place called Newport, but I moved to Telford after being in the Birmingham area when I was 13, and I lived there until I was about 35, and then I moved here.
I know a lot of guests we have from that area were like growing up on like Top of the Pops and BBC One and all that. Was that when you're viewing too when you were a kid?
Oh yeah. It was Jimmy Savile, all the way. Yeah, I mean it was right back to those Thatcher years, when Ronnie Reagan was in it. I think the only relief we had really was John Peel. He was on Radio 1 and he would play, Killing Joke, Crass, and, anything that was kind of alternative at the time, So everything else was just the mainstream pop.
Do you remember the first band that actually caught your attention as a kid? Like not so much metal, even I'm talking like when you're really young.
Actually, I was more into songs. And Another Brick in the Wall. When I first heard that, because it was when it came out, it was a single. I was like, God, And I'm not a big Pink Floyd fan, but I still like that song. I think it was because it was, I didn't like school, and it really did sing. It struck a chord with me. I never got on with school, so it really did.
What was the first record you actually owned?
Silly Thing by the Sex Pistols, single.
You actually were growing up. At first you were more into like the punk scene, right? I don't know if it was like the Exploited, maybe the Vibrators, the Addicts.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for me it was the Pistols, the Damned, and I think it was because I got into Motorhead, and I think it was because at the time, the Motorhead had that kind of fuck you attitude, which was kind of looked like, which was what I needed, But punk was dying at the time when I was getting into it, so post-punk, right? I got into the Misfits years and years later, actually when Glenn Danzig was doing Sam Hain, and so I was kind of like always late, really. I was never kind of fashionably with it, but the punk scene was kind of like it was the anti-establishment, and growing up during, Margaret Thatcher's kind of political situation. It was it was appropriate music that was appropriate for the situation.
The scene in Telford compared to Birmingham, it was quite different.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a new town. It was built for the overspill of the West Midlands and Liverpool and Manchester. So these cities have kind of like got overpopulated, and they needed extra place. So they built. It was a new town like Milton Keynes. It's built on roundabouts and villages, old villages, but they kind of put in new housing estates and ship people in there.
Nice. There's a show you saw that I definitely want to mention. I don't know if it was one of your first shows or not, but you first heard Venom, Warhead on the radio?
Yeah, it was on the Radio 1. Yeah, on the breakfast show with Mike Reid. he did it as a bet, you know. I think so. Tommy Vance, who was the rock show host at the time, kind of bet Mike Reese anyway. I'll give you £100, which was in the 80s was a bit of money, you know. So, well, I think it went to the children or something, to Children in Need or something. You play Warhead by Venom, and it went on the breakfast show, and it got to a few people that.
And related to Venom, you saw, I think it was, so if it was the show that you saw would have been October 8th, I believe, in 85. It was the Bonded by Blood tour for Exodus and the Possessed tour for Venom.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that was the show you were at. What do you remember from that gig?
I remember Gary Alt playing Piranha, saying how those guitar riffs literally took the chunks of meat out of you. And actually, they got those riffs so like sharp. It did give that impression of the teeth of the piranhas, you know, taking the flesh away, you know. And but yeah, it was a great show. It was the first real show I went to, the first metal show I went to, and it changed my life. That's all I can say.
How was Baloff live?
Oh wow, yeah. He was there, yeah. Paul Bailoff. He was fantastic, yeah. Absolutely.
And you were still in school at that time, right?
I was, yeah.
Is that when you first realized that you wanted to be in a band?
I think it probably was, yeah. I mean, it was the thing was in Birmingham at the time. This was at the Birmingham Odeon, like you say, and this place shut down, and it didn't just have Venom and the Exodus thing. Metallica played there on the Master of Puppets tour with Anthrax, you know, supporting. There was even Motley Crue, Twisted Sister played there, and you know, so it was a really good venue. When they shut it down, it went from being like, oh, you've got small clubs like the Powerhouse and to the NEC Arena, and it kind of took a chunk out of the live scene, I felt.
How was the record stores by you guys too? Because I know you guys had like Shades Records, right? Oh, Swordfish and stuff. What was some of the record stores you were hitting?
Yeah, Shades was in London. Yeah, Shades Records. They used to put an advert in Kerrang, and was it? I think it was Kerrang or Terrorizer, which was Metal Forces at the time, which was a fanzine. So you'd send off with a check. Do you remember those? You write a check. Oh, yeah. You put it in an envelope with what you wanted, and they'd send it you back within a few days. So it was, terrible vinyl addiction. But that was in London. Shades was, and we went all the way down to London one day, and it was all right, but it wasn't as good as the quick postal service that they did. It was like Amazon Prime, really good. It was a really good service. In Birmingham, we had Tempest Records, and there was another one as well, which eludes me, as well as Swordfish.
Threshold was another one.
Sorry?
Threshold?
I don't remember that. I remember Ruby Red. So I remember those, and you could get Celtic Frost and everything from the stateside as well there. So it was a place to go, actually, Birmingham city centre on a Saturday afternoon, because you could go and buy some records and then go to Costermonger's bar, a bit older, obviously, when we could drink, and drinking with Napalm Death and Benediction and the local bands. It was the local dinner time drinking as well, which for me was pretty lethal, I have to say.
What was the drinking age when you were in your teens?
18. 18. Yeah, started when I was about 16. But I had to hide in the pub because I always looked young. Even when I was 18, I used to get asked my age. So I used to have to hide in my mates and get them to get me drinks.
And after school, when did you first pick up a bass?
Yeah, I was playing bass, wasn't I? I was playing bass, and I think it was probably that Kronos bass solo at the Birmingham Odeon that that prompted that. I never, it sounded like you were going to hell. That sound that he did, with the cello effects and everything, with the volume pop. So yeah, I was doing that, and I knew Ian Buchanan since I was when I moved into Telford, because we went to the same school, you see. And he was a bit of a hippie, because he used to lend me like Rush albums and and Sabbath and stuff like that. I was like, I've been listening to this Venom, and we kind of started getting into it together. So we'd do the trip on the bus from Telford to Birmingham to get the records, So, and he was playing guitar and I was playing bass. Okay. And eventually I had a go on the guitar and he had a go on the bass. And we felt, because he was big, he's quite a big guy, and the bass kind of suited him. Whereas with the guitar, he was kind of like a mandolin for him, So, so we're trying to swap because of our, I suppose because of our statures, kind of like a small guy. He was a bit bigger, than me, so it looked better. And so I was playing guitar, and he played bass eventually. And I'd been playing guitar for 6 months before I met Carl and had a jam with him in Ironbridge.
What are you guys playing? Covers at first?
We were just playing bits of riffs and riffs from other. We knew some Celtic Frost at the time, but it was just riffs because Carl came in. He was the first drummer we jammed with at the time together, and he came in from that, Judas Priest Painkiller. He came from that. He liked thrash metal. He liked that, the fast stuff. So he came in from a different angle, and so we didn't really know many songs together at the time. We used to try and play Piranha, the riff, anyway.
Did you guys have chemistry right away?
Yeah, well, we started drinking together and hanging out together and became good buddies. And I think that's always a good recipe to get a band going.
And you guys had a singer, right? That you guys were, well, you never had him. Did you meet a guy at a bar who was supposed to come and do vocals and he just never showed up?
There was this pub called Pisces in Wellington, in Telford. And it was an alternative pub. And he was from around the area. And he actually looked like Millie Petrosa from Creator. He had that kind of the same hair. And he looked like he belonged in a band, I said, come, I'm going to have a jam. Why don't you come down? And he said, yeah, I'll come down. And he said he was a singer. And he just didn't turn up, and that's how I adopted the job, really.
And you mentioned Creator. At that time, are you getting into like the Destruction, Slayer, Megadeth, Metallicas, and all that?
Absolutely, yeah. It was on top of the bucket list, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you guys are jamming, and it might have been that Pisces you mentioned, but a buddy named Decker of yours from Newcastle. He's the one that comes up with the name Cancer.
He did, yeah. He did after too many beers. And I was actually the next day, when I was in my, hungover, I was thinking, did he really say that? And then all of a sudden it was like implemented as that was the name of the band, yeah. So
nice. And that was a time period, right, when there wasn't 5 million of this band, and that was a time where you can actually pick some names. I mean, think of some of the great names back then that were available still. Who actually did the Cancer logo? The one that we all know through the years.
I think another friend called Andy Pooler. Pooch's name was. I think he had something to do with it, and then it probably got Carl. Probably had something to do with it as well. So I'm mentioning those two names, but I can't be completely sure. But it came from that, and it kind of got worked out, because we did the album and we didn't have a sleeve, didn't really have a logo, and it kind of got put into place.
what was the actual first Cancer song written? Because I know the first demo you guys had, "The Growth Has Begun" and "Burning Casket." Do you guys kind of work on those songs together, the first two Cancer tracks, or was there one that actually was written first?
I think those two were the first two that were properly written. Because we actually went in the studio. I remember actually sleeping in the studio. We went in the studio. We wrote the songs there and then, and recorded them.
Where are you guys rehearsing at during those early days?
Well, we had a place in Ironbridge, and it didn't last very long. And then we went into this place that was a boxing gym. And they had a studio in the back. That was quite a horrible place, But it was. These were kind of makeshift. They weren't proper rehearsal studios. It wasn't until after really we'd done the first album that we managed to get in, because we got a record company then, and we said, "Well, can you help us with the studio costs and stuff like that if we get a studio to rehearse in?" And then we managed to do it then. But back in those days, it was like we were almost like a garage band, if you know what I mean, because the studios weren't much better equipped.
Yeah. You mentioned the first demo, so you guys did the No Fucking cover demo in '88. That was you and Ian's first time in the studio?
Absolutely, yes. It was. And we slept in to do it because we wrote the songs and recorded it.
In one day, right? You guys recorded that demo?
Pretty much, yeah. So we had like a day or two of actually practicing the songs in the studio, or writing and practicing them. So we put them together, and then we spent a day recording them. But, it was just the two songs.
You guys went to Pitt Studios in Birmingham, and I had read, I don't know, it was an old interview with you had done, and it was upstairs, right? The studio. It was like actually a couple stories up.
Yeah, the only place on earth where the stairs are the same are like the hotels in Amsterdam, Holland, where you go up the stairs and you could easily slip and break your neck. It was those type of stairs all the way up, and we had to lift this, our cabs up, and it was tough, yeah.
And you mentioned cabs. I guess when you guys were rehearsing, you burnt out your guitar cab, and you actually recorded that demo through a bass cabinet.
Yeah, it was my amp that blew. I had a Marshall 50-watt amp head, and the first rehearsal, the whole thing went into meltdown. The transformer blew and everything. Yeah, just unbelievable smoke and yeah.
And this Pitt studio that you talk about, that was owned by Steve Burton from Starfighter, and you also had Steve Young, who that's playing with AC/DC now, which was Malcolm's, their nephew, I guess, and he actually worked on the record with you.
He worked on
the demo.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember him having his sausage sandwiches, in the break, and having to listen to Cancer. Yeah. It's funny because he's got like that uncanny look about him. He's definitely one of the family.
He looks like Malcolm and Angus. You could definitely tell when you see him.
Yeah, But really down to earth guy, to work with. Really.
I said you also worked with Big Mick Hughes on that demo, who had worked with Ozzy, Metallica.
Yeah, it was Steve Young who phoned up and said, "I've got this band in. Can you give me a hand with?" with this. And I think because he'd done the live sound for Metallica, he came in and he was like, "Okay, here you go." And I think he got a bit of a sound with that.
He worked with Zeppelin too, didn't he?
I'm not sure.
I think he did something live with them. And then so you have on that demo, I noticed there's someone listed named Fraser. That was one of Steve's buddies.
Yeah,
backups on the demo.
Yeah, I think he was in the Starfighters. He was one of the guys who hung around the studio. But yeah, funny guy.
And are you tape trading back then? And where are you sending the demos out to? Is it just labels and zines, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, the tape trading was kind of hosted by one of the guys was a guy called Daz Russell, and he basically did a lot of tape trading, from the Mermaid pub and Kaleidoscope and places like that, But I used to get my tapes via Shane Embry of Napalm Death and Mitch Dickinson from Unseen Terror, because they were very much into tape trading, and they were happy to, we used to have those like double tape deck boom boxes.
Yeah.
It was a recording, So I remember I got the Satanic Rites Hellhammer demo, and the hiss was loud as it could be, But you couldn't put the Dolby on because it would affect the edge of the sound. So.
A lot of those tapes too, you think back then when you're trading, I remember like there would be like you said, they would be re-recorded by several different guys and just passed around. You would get the seventh copy of a demo that was originally received by one guy. It was definitely different times compared to now.
Yeah. You got the luxury now of quality, downloads and things.
And the band's first show, well, when was that? The first official show you guys had ever done?
Show. It was when we'd done that first demo. We played live at the Edwards Number 8 in Birmingham with a band called Bomb Disneyland.
They became Deep Throat eventually, actually, that band.
Yeah, I'd love to know the fucking date, but it was in that. I don't remember. I do, but I remember the gig, and I remember how nervous I was. Yeah.
Nice. And you guys do, so after that, so there was the second demo in '89, the Still No Fucking cover. That was back at Pit Studios again, correct?
That was right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did that basically as a pre-record type thing, really, to show that to prove to the record company that we'd actually got enough material for the album, because they thought, they hadn't got enough material, so they wanted to. It was to prove to them. So it was a demo for them. So the first demo we got signed, and the second demo was, basically for those guys at the record company, so they could know that we got the material.
Did you sketch out that cover? Because I know it's just a pen on there, or with the band name and the Still No Fucking cover words.
Yeah, I think it was sketched out. Yeah, I don't know if it was done before or after we'd been to the pub.
Nice. And how did you become connected? Because so you mentioned you got signed right away, and how did you become connected with London's Vinyl Solution?
Well, we just sent that demo, and they got in contact with us, and they had other bands. I think Cerebral Fix were on there. Bolt Thrower did their first
Bolt Thrower
on there. So, and they invited us down off the back of the demo. We went down on the train to see them and spoke with them about what we wanted, and they said, well, what they were offering, and then we left it at that. And then a few months, I think it was a month later, we signed a record deal.
Did you almost sign with Bronze Records out of London, who they had like Motorhead and Angel Witch and Diamond Head? Was that true that you guys almost made a deal with them?
Yeah, that's true. It was near 1994, though.
Okay, so that was after the demos.
Yeah. So.
Okay. And what are some of the bands you could get gigging with back at that time period when you first signed with Vinyl Solution?
Played with Benediction, Napalm Death, Bolt Thrower, Cerebral Fix, Carcass, Godflesh.
Yeah, I saw that. You guys had played with Godflesh. And with Napalm Death, was that Lee on vocals at that time period?
When Lee and Bill played.
And were you familiar with obviously you would have a relationship with these bands eventually, but were you already familiar with the Amon, which, became Deicide, and the Executioner, which became Obituary, and Death, and all those bands? Was your radar on those bands already?
Yes, yes. The Florida death scene was something that took a great interest in. So we had the arrival of Scream Bloody Gore with the autopsy and these bands, and it just kind of for Cancer it was an influence at the time. That's why I wanted to record with Scott Burns.
And you guys did that on the 1990s, the band's debut, To the Gory End. And so at first, when you guys are doing this, there's not much budget, right? It's a small label you're dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. It was a weekend away, and basically recorded the vocals on the last few hours of studio time. It was really, it was mixed at Morrisound. Scott took the tapes back with him and actually mixed it at the studio at Morrisound, but I had to stay. Carl went. He went to Morrisound, and he got to meet Obituary, and later we got to meet some of those bands from playing with them in the UK.
Well, Scott, he came down to, so you guys recorded at Loco Studios in Wales, which was that like an old abandoned mansion?
With Scott Burns?
Well, when Scott came down, because he came down, a couple of days prior to the recording, when you guys do the first record, To the Gory End, he watches you guys rehearse.
Yeah, that was at the studio in Telford. And then we went to, it was Usk, the place in Usk. And we did the recording with him there. But it was, I think it was an old farmhouse, actually. So the Bronze Records that you mentioned, the recording studio that the head of Bronze Records had there was, oh God, what was it called? It was in Milton Keynes in Bletchley, and that was an abandoned manor house kind of thing. Yeah. The name eludes me.
What was your first impressions of Scott when you first meet him? You had sent him the second demo first. Is that how he had heard? I know you guys sent him a demo. Was it the first or second one you sent him?
It was the second one. That he got sent, and he was a nice guy. Real regular guy, and very supportive, helpful. He actually helped me construct lyrics in the verse, chorus, middle eight. He gave me a lot of help with that back then.
And I don't know if it might have been, I don't know if it was his book or not, because I have his book. So when he got there, he was kind of, I might have actually been an interview from one of you guys. He was actually surprised by the level of alcohol in the beer, because you guys were like taking him to pubs at first.
Yeah, well, that's what we did back then, in Britain. That's all we did. It was funny because before, To the Gory End, we used to go for a beer after rehearsing. So we'd rehearse a few times a week, and we'd always go for a beer afterwards. So it's kind of part of the social. I think it's because the weather's so kind of bad in the UK that people tend to. Well, back then, their social life was based in the pub. So, there was many places you could hang out, without getting rained on. So we got to the pub. That was the thing. So, and I bet he was surprised about the level of alcohol.
And on that first record that you're talking about now, we're talking about now, you also had Tim Lewis as an engineer who was a UK experimental musician who added the keys on Die Die and the Gory End track.
Yeah. He was the in-house engineer as well, so he kind of helped in the studio. And
obviously there's John Tardy's on that, on Die Die. He does the backups. And that was probably from Scott, right? When he went back to Tampa to do the mix and master.
Yeah, well, I mean, Carl went with them, so I'd imagine they all hung out, but yeah, it might have been at Scott's request. He kind of does that, doesn't he? Well, he did that, I should say. And so, because we had it in the second album as well.
And the cover art, so I took this off the wall in the studio because I have this in here. I'll show it to you so that was painted by Carl, because obviously the image is from Dawn of the Dead. It was Tom Savini, 1978. And I was going to show, nobody else can see this but us because we don't do any video. But if you look, yeah, I got this years ago. So it's signed by Savini, as you can see. But actually, you can see the image from your guys' cover that they used on the.
Wow, look at that. Fantastic.
Yeah, so Carl painted that, right, for the cover?
He did, yeah. He did. Yeah.
And you guys got censored, right? Which is actually probably great for you guys. But when you guys actually were selling that, you guys had issues with the cover art?
Yeah. There's a backstory to that. We used to get these films from Italy, via Italy, through Germany, and from Germany. So it was like Italian with German subtitles, and then they'd come under the counter type in the UK. It was all those giallo kind of zombie films and stuff like that.
Oh, the video nasties, right, back then?
Yeah. And so the place where it gets banned, our first album, is actually Germany. And it got released like in through the outdoor brown paper bag affair. And it's like, wow, okay. So, this is the place that gave us Necromantic. It's like...
Well, and those who don't know, who are listening, the video nasties, that was I guess it was like Blood Feast and Cannibal Holocaust and like Last House on the Left. There was like a list of films from the National Viewers of Listeners Association or something like that, where they would single all these films out. We've talked about this on our show before.
Well, I mean, they were on videos that, I mean, we saw RoboCop uncut, but I didn't get to see, say, like Last House on the Left at the cinema at the time. But they were called video nasties because they were released on Betamax or VHS videos at the time. And there was kind of I think there was a different level of censorship regarding videos to like at the cinema. So back then, I mean, there was a different version of, RoboCop for the main cinemas to the one that was released.
Yeah, and I have to mention, with this album, because this was the first time I heard Cancer, and I know what some of the songs were about. I think Count was Friday the 13th related.
Body Count, yeah. Jason Voorhees. To the gory end is a bit like Hellraiser.
And Witch Hunt. That was about the author from the Satanic Verses.
It was, yeah. Poor old Salman Rushdie. He got stabbed, didn't he, a few years ago?
2022 at a convention, I believe, in New York City.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the RoboCop. That was Into the Acid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was Die Die about?
Oh, it's Freddy Krueger. Impressions of Freddy Krueger, I think.
How about Sentenced?
Sorry?
Sentenced.
Just the imagination of being hung at the time.
How about Imminent Catastrophe?
The threat of global extinction that we had to live with during the 80s.
And Bloodbath?
The Sharon Tate killing, Manson.
So. And then, so that comes out, that record, To the Gory End, comes out May 15th, 1990. Like we said, it was banned by some. Do you start getting, is this when Cancer starts getting like fan mail and stuff? Do you start like noticing that the name is starting to catch attention in the underground?
Yeah, well, we went from playing from 30 people to about 300 people, literally overnight. Once you got a record out back then, it was, especially in the UK, it actually meant something. So, and... So we started. People started checking us out. You'd say, so we're getting a bit of feedback and that. So
did they leave your names off of the on the first press? They left your guys' names off the sleeve.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a mistake.
I know. What was your reaction when you see that? You finally get this album coming out and they left your guys' names off.
I was pretty pissed off at the time. I was like, God,
That's
my name off.
And when you guys go, so back at home, you guys then are playing with so I know, which is going to tie into the whole James Murphy thing and Deicide thing. So you guys are playing with Deicide and Obituary back at home.
Yeah. Yeah. When Obituary came over to play, it was at the Dome in London. We did a support with them. And Deicide did a small tour, which we played on that tour.
Well. Do you remember how the relationship was back in the day with the Hoffmans and Benton back in the early days?
I didn't really have any. I thought Glenn was quite friendly, and the Hoffmans were friendly. They were friendly to me, So I thought they were all quite friendly.
When do you start working on the material for the Death Shall Rise record? Is it right when you guys get to put out Gory End?
Well, this was it. When the mix came back, and we got all this excitement with us. We tried writing, but we couldn't really write anything. And we had to wait a while, digest what we'd done, and then be a bit patient, and then get on to the next one. So.
And you guys get a bigger budget on this one.
Yeah, well, I think they saw a bit of potential with the record company. The scene had grown a bit, and they took a bit of time to invest.
I know you guys fly out to Tampa to do the record. So when you guys go out there, what is your first impressions of Morrisound?
Oh gosh, yeah. We were sharing the studio with Morbid Angel, and they were doing the Blessed of the Sick album, and we'd already met David Vincent because he'd come over to meet Earache. He knew Shane from Napalm, and Shane was showing him around, and he came over to a barbecue that we were having, and it was another world for me. It was the first time I'd flown on an aeroplane. It was the first time I'd experienced a questioning from the immigration officials. But once I'd got through, and I was on the back of Scott Pickup's truck, and I was in this hotel, and I was going down, and it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
You mentioned a barbecue too. At that time period, weren't you a vegan or vegetarian?
Yeah, I was a vegan at the time, so there wasn't much for me to eat back then.
What was your impression of American food?
Gator Crunch and Kool-Aid. I was like, I was kind of like bread. I'd got this kind of peanut butter stuff going on, so I was surviving, Okay, but veganism wasn't, top of the menu back then. This was 1990, and it was interesting, very interesting for me because, you put the food aside. Morrisound Studios was on a Saturday night was a social club for death metalers. So we were there, you go in and there wouldn't be much going on, but there would be many bands, filing in and out. People wanted to speak with Scott, and there was a scene, and I got to go to Ace's Records.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, what was your impression of that? We talk about that a lot on the show.
That was his prices were very, very reasonable. However, I did spend rather a lot of money, there. He got a great selection of metal. Really.
Did you get to meet Frank?
I did. Yeah, I got introduced to him by James.
James was working there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did you guys spend in the Morrisound for that record?
It was a couple of weeks. We had a couple of weeks there, I think.
Nice. And you mentioned James. So James was first brought in to do a couple solos on the record.
He was just going to come in and do some guest solos, right? And this is where I get my hanky out and dry my eyes, and then go, well, Scott Burns didn't really go for my cat strangling leads at the time.
How many did you lay down prior before? Did you lay a few down?
I laid a few down, but yeah, I'm not really a lead player. I mean, years later, I kind of like mastered a few things on the, where I could do kind of melodic leads and stuff like that. But back then, I was really just kind of very much kind of whammy bar and noise and shit like that, and just you deal with it with the reverb and and the delays, and you sort it out, that type of attitude. But he thought that because I think James was at a loose end, they'd managed to get their Obituary managed to get their original guitarist.
Yeah, Alan West came back, I believe, at that time period.
Kind of like shuffling at a loose end. I thought Scott thought he needed a bit of time out of Florida and an experience in England. So,
and did that help draw attention to that record, would you say, having James on there and because you had already, first of all, you already knew James, right, from what you mentioned, the Obituary prior for the first record.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'd all, just listen back in awe when he brought out Spiritual Healing, and then we saw him play on the Cause of Death tour with Obituary, and we're like, wow, what a player. So, I mean, coming in and playing the leads, it was like, nice one.
And on that record, I had heard that you didn't even use your own guitars for that, right? Scott, he was pretty much, that was the one difference between the last record you did when he came out to Wales with you guys, was he was pretty much in control of the settings, and he kind of supplied you guys with what you needed?
Yeah, basically, he knew what we wanted, he knew what we needed, and he knew what sound he was going to go for. And it was all pretty much all set up.
So having him on the record, do you feel at that time period, for those who don't know, was Scott Burns, he was the guy that people wanted to go to, right? Because you had all these albums coming out, like you said, Obituary, Deicide and stuff. I think it was you, not the label, who said, hey, maybe we could work with Scott Burns. And you really didn't think it was going to happen. But then they got back to you and said, yeah.
Yeah. It was half kind of like, see what he says, and when he said yes, it was like, wow, gosh. What an opportunity! So going over there and doing the Death Shall Rise was, it was a great experience, which I'm very grateful for, and the way Scott made it happen, I'm kind of indebted.
Did you know that? So, when you're leaving that studio after those 2 weeks there recording that record, do you know that is James Murphy decided to be part of the band while you're in the studio, while you guys are finishing up in Morrisound, or was this something that you guys figured out when you got back?
Well, he basically did the leads. I did all the rhythm guitars. He did the leads, and the idea was he was going to come over and play with us and do some and promote the album, basically. So he kind of said, I think he kind of saw himself more as a session player at that time. And I think he felt in himself that, having like X, what's it, it was kind of, it was going to look bad eventually. So I think he just said, look, guys, it's like, it was a session. But yeah, he stopped at my flat for 3 months, and I got him to go through those Spiritual Healing riffs with me.
Nice. And you guys did a video for that too. For that album, you guys did Back from the Dead, which is inspired by Reanimator.
Yeah. It's that Stuart Gordon type.
Yeah. And you guys, the video itself, you guys do that video. It was directed by Paul Hart Wilden, who's done like 30 Days of Halloween. And I know he does some Netflix stuff too. Was that a friend of yours? Because this is like when he started working with Netflix.
I don't know how he came about. The guy whose farm it was where we did the video, I know he had something to do with it, because he was involved with horror magazines at the time, So he got the contact. I'm not sure how it came about, but yeah, it was a nod towards Reanimator.
You guys did 2 versions of that video, right? Because you had one for, I guess the mainstream, but I know there was 2 versions to that video. You guys used a special effect Mark Walker, related to you at all?
No, not me personally. Probably down the line he might be, but by name only. So,
how about Catherine Hankinson, who was actually the actress? Did you know her, or was that just supplied from the guy with the farm?
No, she was a professional model, wasn't she? So yeah. I didn't know her. I didn't know any of these people.
So we're going to play a song off that record, and then we're going to come back to you here in a minute. We're going to play, we'll talk about the song. I know Benton does the backups on it. We're going to play Hung, Drawn, and Quartered off Death Shall Rise. And again, was that, an easy, just asked him to do it? He was hanging out in the studio and said, no problem?
Well, he was there to see us because we'd already befriended him, and he was at the studio before we turned up, and he was like, we were having a smoke with him in the car park, and Scott said, "Come on, then," and he came. We did the Hung, Drawn, and the chorus together in the studio.
Yeah, actually, there's a photo. I've seen a photo of that, actually, of you guys in Morrisound doing that. I don't know, Ed, I'm sure you've seen it too. There's actually a picture of you and Benton doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to play that song now. We're going to play Hung, Drawn, and Quartered off Death Shall Rise from Cancer, and we'll be back with John after this track on the Tampa Morgue. We're back on the Tampa Morgue. That was Hung, Drawn, and Quartered from Cancer. And the album art was done by Junior Timlin, who was like a London artist does like sci-fi and fantasy and futurism art. How did he get involved?
It's through the record company. He was through the contacts of the record company. And I'm still yet to meet him. He's been threatening to come to our shows, but he hasn't come yet. So,
were you a fan of the artwork when you saw it at first?
Yeah, I was kind of like, I used to like those old Frank Frazetta things. Those old heavy metal artwork and fantasy artwork. I just love all that stuff. And it was kind of like a throw to that, really.
Yeah. And after the album comes out, you guys do a UK headline tour with Unleashed and Desecrator?
Yeah.
Well, how was that tour for you guys?
Ooh. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah.
We're going to ask you some old questions, some knock the dust off your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just remember talking with Unleashed about dietary things on tour. That's all I remember about that. What do you eat on tour so your metabolism stays working? But I can't really remember much about that. I remember we started off in London, and pretty much it.
You also did shows with Malevolent, right, and Pestilence off that record.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, with we played the Marquee together, and great shows.
And we have to mention, obviously, you guys did. I don't know. I think you guys may have done it more now. I think it was 3 times you guys did Milwaukee, but you guys did Milwaukee 91, 92, and 94.
I think was it 93? I can't remember whether it was 93 or 94, but yeah, we did the one with Sepultura and Ice-T, and then we did the one with Deicide and
Cannibal, right? Ex-Hoarder, I think, was on.
Yeah, and then the last one we played was when Testament played.
Yeah, you guys, it's funny because I remember the Live Death, the comp they had out, which back then was like going through the high school. When I was in high school, they had 2 tracks from you guys on there, Bloodbath and Hung, Drawn, and Quartered. It had 2 live tracks all from Milwaukee, which was that recording was from 92.
Yeah, it was the basketball stadium we played at. Yeah. It was the second one we did. It was the second one we did. Yeah.
The first one you did, Scott Burns did the sound for you guys.
He did, yeah, he did, and I had to borrow a guitar off Cannibal Corpse for that, because I didn't have a guitar. But yeah, Scott Burns did the sound, and we got pretty good review, I think, from that one.
And so after that, James did 2 European tours with you guys, and then leaves and puts together Disincarnate. Did you feel like it was hard for him to fit in since you, Ian and Carl kind of guys are the original lineup. You guys have the bond. You guys grow up in the pubs together and stuff like that. Do you feel like that it was hard for him to actually fit into the band?
I think it's difficult for anyone in that situation to go into it. But I always, he stopped with me for 3 months, and we understand that we're human beings at the end of the day, and we got to know each other. We got to know our little cliques and stuff like that. So, but I've got good memories with James. So.
And how did you guys hook up with Barry Savage?
Well, when we partied with James, we put out an advert, and he contacted us. So he came up from Bournemouth, and it was about 4 hours in the car, and had a jam. And we thought he had the right attitude, but we couldn't go back to being a 3-piece. Because the sound had, we were writing as a 4-piece then, and didn't didn't want to go back as a 3-piece.
At that time, was he the only guitar player to actually audition for you guys?
I think he was. Yeah.
And his first show with you guys was in Israel?
It was, yes. It was, yeah, in Tel Aviv. Yeah.
What are some of your, so you've, obviously you've been around the world pretty much. Obviously live in Madrid now, which we'll get to that and everything, but what are some of your favorite places that you've played in the world?
Mexico, Metal Mexico. I quite like Brazil, Slovenia, London. I liked those death fests in California.
Oakland, yeah.
Death Fest that Evan and Ryan put on. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and recent. I mean, we played China last year, and that was an experience.
Hey, how was that?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I didn't expect, to see people, with long hair and. I was expecting some kind of like Chairman Mao, but yeah, I was quite surprised with it, and yeah, the only problem for me there was my metabolism completely stopped. It was the shock of the food or the water or something like that. Was
I was going to ask you that. What are they feeding you? Because I know in the States you're getting pizza, right? Pizza, beer, soda. What are you getting in China as the gig meals?
Well, this was it. It was like duck's feet, fried duck. Yeah, yeah. I'm not vegan, but I am vegetarian. And I was like, yeah, I'm struggling here. So I lost a bit of weight while I was there. But no, it was interesting. It was interesting. We travelled by train from a place Tianjin to Shanghai, and you saw these incredible structures, housing structures. It's like they were like the mega cities in Judge Dredd. It was like Jesus,
Nice.
fucking hell, So
And people are friendly though, right? I mean, with the fans, were they very knowledgeable on cancer? Like, you mentioned Brazil and stuff. Some places you go to and they are like devoted as shit.
yeah,
Was it like that with China too?
yeah, it was. They were. It was an interesting experience because you wouldn't. I wouldn't expect. It's like I'd place China next to India, and I wouldn't expect to be many, cancer fans in India. You know what I mean. So it's quite curious, really, the whole China thing.
Now, so you guys put out that record, and afterwards, so you guys put a 4-way split out, a 7-inch with Poison Idea, Gunshot, and Headbutt. It's a vinyl, right? That was a promo in London for a 93 gig?
Yeah, yeah. We had to do the show. Yeah, we had to play with Poison Idea. So yeah, it was interesting times. That was around the Sins of Mankind, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When we did that. So
And at that time period, you are starting to, now that you have Barry in the band and stuff, you guys are starting to write more technical music. And do you as the writer, are you putting all the riffs together and setting, do you write the majority of the guitars in Cancer?
with the riffs, yeah, it's yeah, the riff guys, me, I'm afraid. So yeah.
Was that intentional to go a little more, were you guys kind of trying to change it up a little bit? Because it's definitely a little more technical period for the band.
I think it was because after Death Shall Rise, I was doing it. I was actually doing music full time, and I kind of got into instead of. I mean, we were listening to the bands that were coming out, but we were also listening to other things at the time, like Rush and these type of more progressive bands. So I think we were just trying. I was trying to get like slightly ambitious with the musician aspect of it, and so I mean, it's quite. If you look at it, I mean, for like the first 2 albums, there's quite a difference in the sound, and they're basic songs, but there's a difference between the first album and the second album. So in the third album, probably playing with Deicide as well, probably put a little bit more of a technical edge to it.
And how do you guys hook up with Simon Effamy, who actually worked with Amorphis from Finland, Napalm Death, Paradise Lost?
Yeah, we heard him on the Paradise Lost Shades of God album, and he kind of got a very good metal sound at the time. And we sent him. Well, the record company got in contact with him, and he said, yeah, he was living. He lived at the time in Stourbridge, which is in the Birmingham area. So we'll have the same accents.
So when you guys meet Simon, so he wanted to, that next record we're going to talk about now is obviously The Sins of Mankind from 93. He wanted to give the band a little more of a traditional sound on that record.
I think we did at the time, and I think it was more of a case of, getting the more of a British metal sound, because like I say, we did the first two albums with Scott, and we got another guitarist. We're doing tours and stuff, and we thought, try Simon Effamy. He was the guy.
It's your first time recording as a 4-piece too, right? This record.
Yeah. Although I did all the rhythm guitars, and Barry did the leads. So,
have you done all the rhythms for all the Cancer albums?
I think he did a few rhythms on the Black Faith. I think we had a few rhythms, and on the Corporations EP, there was a few rhythms done by Rob. But yeah, I've done pretty much all the rhythm guitars.
And with the Sins, when you guys are going, is it was that kind of like a focus to make it more of a straightforward record? Was it just natural to do that, or?
I can't really remember what was in my head at the time, but I think we jammed a lot of it. We jammed it out, and because we had plenty of time, because we were doing music full time, then we'd actually have the time to put it together, in that way. But it was just, I think it's just how you write at the time. I could try and philosophize on it, or be a nightmare interviewee and say, exaggerate and bullshit. But I think it's just what comes out at the time, But I think the thing was with the Gory End. There's a bit of a joke here, because with the Gory End, we used to go to the pub after we rehearsed. With Death Shall Rise, we used to go to the pub before we rehearsed. And on The Sins of Mankind, I think we'd stopped drinking quite a bit by then, because we were, so we were, yeah, slightly different.
How about the lyrical approach on that record?
Yeah, it was, Simon got involved quite a lot. He likes that type of thing with the vocals and the lyrics. And I pretty much I did a fair amount of the lyrics on the first two albums, and I did Cloak of Darkness and some of the others. But it went. Simon kind of did a lot to put it together, I have to say.
And the artwork on that record, that's an old painting, right, from 1852.
Yeah. We picked it out of some kind of gallery. Me and Ian went down to London and told us to look at these. So we'll have a look at these slides, and we picked it out and thought, that looks heavy metal.
How does that work? Do you guys have to is there a certain fee for that, or is it public domain? Or
I think I'm not sure whether we had to pay or not. It's such a long time ago, I must admit. If he did, it probably went on the recording costs.
And the record label was very hands-on that record for you guys?
Well, yeah. They were quite hands-on from Death Shall Rise onwards, and probably to the Gory End. But when they started, taking an interest of, putting the band out professionally, because we didn't have jobs while we were doing those albums. We weren't doing like side jobs. We were actually doing music full time. So they put their time and effort in to make it happen.
How does that work? You guys are dealing with, I think on that record, you guys dealt with Restless Records out of California, Flame Trader out of Germany, was it Thrust out of Australia? And you had I think there was 4 different labels that you guys were dealing with. So how was that working for Cancer at that time period? Is it like hitting certain areas, making sure the record gets out to, different locations?
Well, I think back then they used to sell the rights, didn't they? They used to sell they'd have their like networking, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Social.
I saw you guys dealt with a lot of labels on that release.
Yeah, it was through Vinyl Solution. I'm pretty positive. They were the guys. I can't remember. I don't remember phoning these people up myself, except Restless Records. I remember Joe Regis.
You guys are getting ready to go on tour, and you guys had an accident, right? Well, not you, but there was a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, that was
Carl.
Yeah, that was Carl Stokes. Yeah, he put himself in hospital literally a few days before the European tour that we were going to do off the back of Sins of Mankind.
Is that with Cerebral Fix, that tour?
Yeah, it was. It was with Cerebral Fix and another band called Gomorrah. And we employed Nick Barker, who did the Monolith catalepsy stuff, because we knew him anyway, because he used to roadie for us. He used to come on tour and do some roadieing work. And that's how he got the job with Cradle of Filth, because they came on that tour and did a support slot in the UK leg. And of course they shared the bus. And I think he gave him his number. And next thing I knew, he was on the TV.
He only had 2 rehearsals with you guys before you guys hit that tour?
Pretty much, yeah. We booked a studio in Stoke-on-Trent and stopped the night there and went through it. But he's very, very quick at working. Last time I saw him play he was doing some stuff with Exodus, and I think he's like that. He just knows the drum beats, doesn't he?
Yeah. And you guys go back to the States. You guys do a tour with Discarnate also, right? In '93.
Yep. Yeah, we did that. So and we didn't go over to the West Coast. The tour bus broke down.
I was going to ask you about that. Did you guys have some tour issues on that?
Yeah, we had the travel issues. So what happened was it was going to be a 3-band package with Disincarnate, Morgoth, and Cancer, and Morgoth pulled out, and we were left with substandard travel arrangements, and it was quite an experience, actually. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we're going to play another song off of the Sins record. We're going to play Meat Train, and we'll be right back with John in a moment on the Tampa Morgue after this track. This is Meat Train from Cancer. You're back on the Tampa Morgue. That was Cancer with Meat Train. And we already mentioned 94. You guys did the live death record with Exhorder and Suffocation. Malevolent was on there also for Milwaukee Metal Fest. So 94, and trailing back to 91, actually, with the release of, like, you guys had, back then you obviously have, the Neverminds coming out from Nirvana that year, Smashing Pumpkins with Gish and Soundgarden. All these bands are coming out. Do you remember the vibe of the underground? Like, did the band start realizing that shit's changing? Like, cause I remember this time period. I know Ed remembers this time period too. And it was definitely there was definitely a change going on. Did you notice that too back in that time period, say 94?
For me, music was so cool in '94. With that, remember bands like Prong and Helmet, with those thick guitar sounds and the song-orientated music, but with that thick sound, and I do, I look back at that, and I think it was a great time. Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies,
So
tremendous.
John, we talk about me and Ed, like, I saw Alice in Chains on the Facelift tour, the first record, and they were getting booed, right? And then probably like a month later, one of the biggest acts around, like, because we saw them at Madison Square Garden, right, Ed? We've talked about this. It was Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, and Public Enemy, and Alice in Chains. Clash of the Titans tour. Alice in Chains is on stage. People are throwing stuff at them. Wow. And then next thing you know, it's a whole different world months later. I think Man in a Box was just out. I think that was the only video that had come out at that time period. But so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember when I first heard Dirt. I mean, I'd already heard, the Facelift, but I heard Dirt in a car park in Dallas, Texas. Having had a little bit of a smoke, and I was like, "Man, this is incredible." When Rooster comes in, it's like, it's every tone is just, with you, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, even like I remember, even as a kid, like, 'cause I used to stay up on Saturday nights to watch Headbangers Ball, like a lot of us kids did back then. You even noticed a little bit of change on that. Because, back even on Headbangers Ball, you kind of had to wait for the more extreme bands to come on. Sometimes you might see a Napalm Death, you might see these videos, but mostly it was kind of like the Slayers, Megadeths and stuff like that. But then you started seeing these bands being moved in. You started seeing an Alice in Chains on Headbangers Ball, and I started noticing the difference. I'll never forget that. And that, so for you guys, we're going to go to the next record, which was 95's the Black Faith record. And so I'll say, as a kid, I remember when I saw this, the first thing I thought is, where's the Cancer logo? That was the first thing that kind of like, and I think, so going back to that, like, first of all, what was the decision to use let's talk about the cover first. What is the album cover, and what was the idea not to use the Cancer logo?
Okay. Basically, again, there's quite a bit of a backstory. So we left Vinyl Solution, and we got involved with I've remembered the studio now. It's Great Linford Manor in Milton Keynes, and the owner was the boss of Bronze Records, and he had the Pink Floyd "Wish You Were Here" desk in the studio, and we went there to record the Black Faith, and it was a corporate record. And I very quickly realised that when you get involved with corporate record labels, there's your opinion and what you're set out to do. So the idea was to try and rebrand the band, basically corporate style, because of all this, what you said about the Alice in Chains and all this, and and death metal.
I think I heard you say in an interview they wanted death metal bands, but they didn't want death metal records.
That's right. They wanted the one thing that there was spoken to me about. I mean, they didn't mention. I expected the logo. I mean, I got a phone call at 3:00 in the morning from Los Angeles from somebody saying, "You got to change the name of your band."
Oh shit!
But yeah, my vocals weren't corporate style, and
that was East West as the label, right? Which was like a sister or a Elektra Records related.
Yeah, it's part of the Warner Brother lot. So yeah.
And what about the clown on the cover?
Again, I mean, it's like,
I've always wanted to ask you this, so now I can. So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it was the record company's decision. It was unanimous with them, and I remember talking to them about, doing some kind of video, and as soon as I started, I realised, that if there was a video, it had already been discussed without me being there. So, yeah, it was a completely different environment of working with a record label. So we went from being like indie record label people to being on a major record label for the first time, and we went through. We had two lots of management. We ended up being advised and looked after by Abaddon from Venom and Tony Cook, who was working with them at the time. They came down from Newcastle to see us in Telford, bought us beers, and they were kind of trying to help us. And then, unfortunately, I mean, the whole thing didn't last. He split up.
Did you guys start? Was it not like? I don't know how to put it. Did you guys start feeling like it wasn't fun anymore when you guys were doing this record? Because now you're dealing with a bigger label, like you said. And do you realize, like, and also we'll talk about too, because they're starting to pair you up with, I know you guys, the last show I think you guys did was the London show with Machine Head. But did you start, like, was it just a buzzkill basically? Like, were you just like, shit, like this is totally different than we thought it would be? Or were you kind of learning as you were going? Like they were giving you like we're going to have you guys do this. We're going to have you do that,
Yeah, I mean, it was that type of thing. It was where ambition had become, part of the order of the day, rather than just trying to do some decent music, some good death metal. And in a way, I mean, I'm kind of glad I did it, and went through the experience. But I would say, I mean, mentally speaking, it didn't make me any healthier, mentally speaking. I'm within a year after that album was released, I was traveling in India, trying to recover, from the experience.
How was the fan reaction? Did you guys get some blowback from that?
Yeah, we got accused of all kinds of things, So I turned your back on your fans and all this, But I mean, a lot of bands were experimental, reaching out at the time. Of course, you can't please everyone, Tony.
Did you know when you guys were doing that last show? Was the last show in London with Machine Head? Was that the last you guys did before you guys split?
That was the first show we did off the back of that album. We did the last show where we headlined, and that was it. After that show,
did you know when you're on that stage that like this is? When did you realize like, okay, this is it?
I think that show, it was pretty much, I got hit by a bottle of that. Talking about bottles, so not that we had a rain in of bottles, but I think we did. It's funny because with that album, when I see fans today, I get like people coming up and they bring you your discography to sign. It's like, shall rise, the sins of mankind, and then all of a sudden it's Shadow Gripped and Ball Cutter, and then every now and again you'll have somebody coming up with their Black Faith album, but they won't have any of the others. So it's quite strange that I think we appeal to a different group.
And what do you do? So you moved to Madrid in 1996. Is that when you actually relocated?
No, I was kind of pretty much dropped out of society at that point. I was
going to ask you, what did you do during that time period?
I was living in a trailer, finding bits of kind of warehouse work here and there, and I was playing the acoustic guitar a bit, and I was pretty much off the rail track, and so I was doing a lot of traveling, getting some life experience in Asia, stuff like that, and then we got back together and did another album.
Oh yeah, you took 2003. I know the Absolute Power record didn't come out until 2011 that you did with Simon and Shane. Obviously, 2003. We'll talk about the Cancer Reforms, but did you do the guitars for that in 2003? The Absolute Power.
I did some of them. I did half of the album, the guitars on that, and I did the acoustic thing. But it wasn't really my type of thing. I wasn't really, I was brought up on the, I like Shane. I've known Shane since I was a kid, so and I know Simon quite well, so I agreed to do it. But my forte's, Slayer, Hell Awaits, Venom, At War with Satan, Warhead. My forte's Celtic Frost, and this type of thing. And I like new wave of British heavy metal, but it's just not something I really want to play. I love Angel Witch, by the way, and I know
Definitely, yeah. And you got 2003 Cancer Reforms, and how do you hook up with you guys that still have a second guitar player, but it's Rob this time, and you have Adam on bass for this. So how does that whole thing become? Because I know it was like a reissue, right? That was going on back then. Did that have something to do with the reformation?
Well, the reissue, I don't remember the reissues then. I must admit. I remember them when we got back as an original with the original lineup.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that one. Okay, so
we had was the Corporations EP, which was like a statement against that kind of musical situation we were in 6 years earlier.
and that was during the golf. So which I didn't even mention when you're doing when you're in the States for the first record, it's the first Gulf War, right? So when you're doing the Corporations, that's the second Gulf War.
Yeah. So
and that had something to do with the whole Corporations EP.
Well, we knew the whole, yeah. I mean, it was the whole question of why we were going to war and all that, and it was for some of us it was pretty obvious,
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember the first Gulf War, and I remember the second one, and I remember the Tony Blair and his lying lying to us about it.
It's crazy. It's been so long. I remember the first one too. I was actually at a band rehearsal in a basement, and they announced the war, and I just remember being like, "What the?" In the States, it was like, "What the hell's going on?" And now it's normal every day.
Yeah.
So you go to, like I said, you do that, and then Rob leaves and is replaced by Dave, who played guitar and Pulverized.
Yeah, David Leach. Yeah, he got his entire education from FHM magazine. He did. He was a wonderful guy. You couldn't have you didn't have like an in-depth conversation with him, but when he was talking about very jovial things, he was great. Funny guy.
Copro Records, am I saying that right? How do you get involved with them?
Well, this is it. When we did that that gig, that tour with Cerebral Fix and Gomorrah, two guys from Gomorrah, there's two guys there who started the Copro Records, and I think that through the Bush Telegraph, they found out we wanted a record company, and we sold them the Corporations EP, and then they signed us to do an album, which was the Spirit in Flames.
Where'd you guys record that record at?
It was Henley-on-Thames. I can't remember the name of the studio, but it was kind of like a converted garage, I think, or like something, big room. But yeah.
How many shows did you guys do in support of the Spirit in Flames?
Yeah, we did a tour of Portugal and Spain, and then we did another tour of Spain with Napalm Death and Diecast. And we did some shows in the UK, and then that was it. Then it was over.
And what was so 2006 you guys break up again, and what was the reason for that? Well, you don't have to share it if you don't want to, but if you'd like to.
Well, I moved to Spain. I got married, and I was kind of, what was going on. So it was partly my fault, I have to say, but I needed a bit of time to sort myself out and get the marriage life underway and get myself. I needed a bit of a breather, so to speak, and but I think the reason was it just didn't feel right in the end doing it with that lineup. So
You go to Spain, and then you guys form Liquid Graveyard, which is actually with your wife, right? Am I saying her? Is it Raquel Walker?
yeah.
Who does the vocals? Arian D. I'm probably going to butcher some of these names. Arian D. Butler, and a drummer named Mark O'Donnell. What can you tell us about this band?
Well, it was something that I wanted to put together because Liquid Graveyard's about the Mediterranean, about all these people, coming in. It's the same as like you got with the Texas border and that in the States. Is you got this thing where we've got a lot of immigration problems, and a lot of people die on the Mediterranean. I shouldn't be laughing about that, but it's the situation's ridiculous. That's the thing, and so the band was built around that concept. We wanted to just do kind of like basic songs, with a kind of progressive vibe to it, So
you guys did what, like one demo and 3 full lengths so far?
Yeah. I don't know if we'll do any more.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I know the last thing, the last full length was what, 2016, the By Nature So Perverse. You guys, so is it kind of a done deal right now, or is it still something that could possibly come back?
Well, I always go with how I'm, when I'm writing, if I'm writing music, there's a different format for Liquid Graveyard whereas with Cancer, because I do the vocals, I tend to write the vocals and the riffs kind of like together with the theme, So whereas with Liquid Graveyard, I'm kind of like a bit more flexible and what I can do on the guitar, So and it's a band that doesn't really have any guitar leads on it, so it's kind of like a riff. It's a rock metal band, with that. With that type of format, whereas Cancer's more death metal.
Well, the last record you had, you had Shane. You mentioned Shane Embry before. Shane on bass, and Nick played drums on that last record you guys did.
Yeah.
And you guys had lost. What happened to you? Again, you don't have to, if it's something that's personal, you don't have to say it all. I know the original drummer, Mark O'Connell, passed away.
Yeah. He, I think he fell in with the wrong group of people. He was at an impressionable age, and we felt really bad about it, actually, because we don't really know the full extent of how he died, but it's not very nice. We were quite upset about it, to be honest.
Did you guys do many shows?
We played a few in Spain with him. It was he was in the band when it was really at its infancy, and with what happened with him, we basically, we kind of, we had to get a replacement, So.
You guys were talking about shows. I know actually was just going to bring us to when we talk about the new record you have coming out with Cancer. Daniel, the bassist. So he was actually doing, the guy who you play with now in Cancer, who handles the bass duties. He was actually doing live bass for you guys.
He was, Graveyard. Yeah, he joined. He came in the last few shows we did with Liquid, and
he's a Madrid guy too. So is that how you kind of got to know him?
Yeah. He's part of the scene. He's, he's one of the familiar faces in the Madrid scene.
Nice. In 2013, what brings you guys back? You, Carl, you and Ian are back in Cancer. So how does that's related to the release, right? Because it was Cyclone Empire out of Germany who did the reissues for you guys.
Yeah, it was their fault. Yeah. So they released our 3 albums, the first 3 albums again. and we say, should we play some festivals to in support of it? And so we agreed to do it. We played the festivals across Europe. We played the Maryland Death Fest. I think it was 2014. I think it was that one. And and the idea was just to. This was the story. It was just to play a few shows, drink a few beers, have a laugh, to promote the reissues of the first 3 albums. And then we got offered a record deal with Peaceville, and so we went a bit further. We did a bit of an overreach and did the album, and
that brings us to that Shadow Gripped.
Yeah. And
when do you guys start training back riffs? Like, when do you start saying, hey, let's write some more material? You start sending them riffs. Is that like, are you guys doing how many years of like festivals first before you guys make this decision to basically bring more material into the Cancer?
Yeah, it was within, because I remember I was recording the last Liquid Graveyard album at the same time I was playing the Fall of Summer Festival in France with Cancer, which was one of the first festivals we played. It was when we reformed. And so as soon as it was recorded, I pretty much started writing then, and Carl had got some ideas, and so it was from then on, really, But when we knew that we got with a record deal, you start writing properly then, don't you?
Do you feel excited? Are you guys like, hey, the three amigos are back together? Are you guys starting to feel like that chemistry? Like, is it, the excitement back from when you guys first started?
Yeah, minus the alcohol. Yeah. That was the thing. But yeah, I mean, we felt that as a 3-piece, we did it as a 3-piece for that time, and so we took it back to its. I mean, basically, when we went out to play those festivals, we were playing stuff off the first 2 albums. So when we came to do Shadow Gripped, we basically followed on from like that 3-piece type of format. So it was a good laugh, and we did what we did, and did some serious rites of passage, and then the COVID-19 happened.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that whole time period. You said you put out Shadow Gripped in 2018 on Peaceville. You recorded that at Cadillac Blood Studios in Madrid?
Yeah, it was kind of like it was in this urbanization. It was like some guy's house where I did the guitars, but the drums and bass were recorded in Fowell Studios in Wales. So back to Wales.
You guys, and you also artwork wise for that, you have Matt Vicker staff from he's a UK artist, because I know he's done Abigail Williams and Asheron and Hell Witch. How do you guys hook up with him? Or is that Peaceville setting that up for you?
Yeah, well, we knew about him because he did the By Nature So Perverse sleeve. So he did that. So we knew about him, and so it's like a small world in that respect. And I wanted him to do the album. It was, I thought he'd be like a good. I didn't want like a to kind of like revisit the old sleeves. I wanted something kind of new, to show, when bands come out after 30 years, do something new. So.
And you also, on this one, you had your wife did backups, and Simon did backups on this record for you, and Peter.
Yeah.
For guest vocals.
Yeah, Pete Giles. He did the thigh bone horn trumpet sound on Black Faith. He did. Yeah, he's into Tibetan Buddhism, and he's got all these kind of like artifacts and that. But he used to have a band called Harmony as One. It was a side project that he used to do with Carl.
You also had Anders from Bloodbath do guitar solo on that record?
Did, yeah, on ball cutter at the end. Glorious ending.
Yeah, and you guys obviously the EP you guys also put out in 2019, the Ball Cutter. And then 2022, Ian and Carl decided to call it a day. Now that has a lot to do with you mentioned the COVID thing, right? This all plays into them leaving the band eventually.
I think, well, I mean, I remember during that time, there's a lot of reflection and a lot of thought. And, I think it was a case that it was the end of a chapter for them, and, saying that we were only supposed to get back together to play a few festivals, and we got to do so much more. We did some serious rites of passage, like I say. So we split on very amicable terms.
And are you guys still in touch now?
Yeah, of course, because of the royalties.
Oh yeah, there you go. And I one thing I want to mention about Ball Cutter too is the artwork on that was pretty killer, man. That was done by Paul G.
Yeah. He's done the artwork for the new album as well.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about here, which is with the guillotine.
Yeah,
the new artwork. 2023 Peace Till Death 12-inch 4-way split with Autopsy, Mortis Scold, Static Abyss. We've actually had now that you're on the show, we've had every band on that 4-way split on here now.
Wow.
You were a big. I love Autopsy. Were you a big Autopsy fan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I remember when Seventh Survival came out. I bought that on red vinyl. Top stuff.
Okay, and you guys now obviously here now you have some new members in the band too. You have Gabriel. I don't want to mess up their last names, but Valcazar.
Alcazar.
Alcazar, okay. And then Miguel on drums. So you actually met him from California Death Fest in Oakland when he was playing with Wormed?
I remember them playing, but I never knew them. I didn't meet them. But it was Daniel who got in contact with him, and we got a couple of drummers down to have a jam with, and he was the one who had the kind of like that natural feel, But he lives in a place called Rioja in Logroño in Rioja, which is a region in Spain where some of the most famous wine comes from. He's got this like gladiator physique, I've noticed as well. It's like, yeah, great guy.
And then I guess Miguel leaves, right? And you guys get a Robert on guitar. This is the lineup now, right? The current lineup.
Yeah, Miguel was in, to help out really, with the live situation because we wanted to get the thick sound. But after we played with Triumph of Death in Brazil, he was talking about, because he plays in Worm and he's like, his woman's having a baby. I was like, look, we need to get somebody else. Because I can do the rhythm guitars. I've always done the rhythm guitars. I'm not going to, there's no point in me, sharing that, I need somebody who can play some leads, who can smoke some shreds, get that on there. And so he left and we had a guy filling in, and then we got Robert, and he came in through my son, actually. My son was jamming.
That's right, yeah. Nice. And you guys so when do you start working? Now, I've heard that we're going to go to the new record that's coming out. Was it April 25th? It comes out on Peaceville. Right. So we're going to talk about that now. Inverted World. I've heard this record. You had it written about 2 years ago.
It was after the COVID. So we had here in Spain, the lockdowns, the quarantines were quite bad. We had the police patrolling the streets in their cars, and it was for somebody who's brought out of that whole punk rock anti-establishmentarianism type upbringing. I thought it was absolutely disgraceful, what they did, locking us in houses, telling us how long we could go out, So it was really, really quite an awful situation. And I think that was that provoked the writing afterwards when we were let out again, when we were free to leave our houses. that's what started the writing again. And it was this idea that we meekly lock down, in this kind of um, Stockholm syndrome. I thought it was terrible, So I think that was that's what did it.
Does that influence the title right there with the inverted world? Is that kind of
Well,
play into that?
The inverted world actually came from the investigative journalist David Icke, where he talked about how the schools destroyed education and learning, that the medical pharmaceutical industry destroys health, and that religion destroys spirituality and this type of thing. And he referred to it as the inverted world. And I stole the title, but I put it with that kind of human sacrifice kind of.
Is that where that cover comes from? Whoever hasn't seen it, that kind of plays with the guillotine on there and everything.
Exactly. I mean, the way people, adhere to their masters, kissing the master's feet, so to speak, regarding the politicians and everything, before you know it, I'll be sending my son to the front line, to fight, the way the rhetoric comes out,
100%, man. And you guys record that record at the Empty Hall Studios in Madrid.
Yes, the Empty Hall. I remember doing an interview and calling it the Empty Room Studios, but it's the Empty Hall. Yeah, it was good.
How long did it take you guys? Was it a couple weeks, or how long was there to get the record done?
It took a really long time because there was long spaces between each person going in to do their part. So we did the drums first, and then I went in, I think, the following month and did the rhythm guitars, and then there was another month and I did the vocals, and then we did the lead. Well, Robert went in and did the leads, and but I'd say I took 2 days to do all the rhythm guitars, and I took a day and a half to do the vocals.
And are you guys rehearsing together? So I know, you guys are all different parts of Spain, right? Everyone kind of lives a little bit distance from each other. Are you and Daniel and Robert and Gabriel getting together for jams each week, or is it kind of before gigs?
No, we rehearsed. We rehearsed for gigs, but we rehearsed for the record. Gabriel would come up to Madrid, or we'd go down to see Gabriel. We did it only on a couple of occasions. We need to, repay the debt a bit. But we got together, and but with a clear idea of what we were going to play before we played it. So I gave them the riffs, sent them down the internet to them on their emails, and so they can work out what they were going to do.
And for old school Cancer fans, and we're actually going to play Amputate, which is a killer song, man, off the new record when we end the show tonight. What can Cancer fans expect? If you look at the Cancer the Cancer discography, right? Where can they picture this album to fit into?
Well, I think it's a unique Cancer album. I think that we've got a different sound again. But ultimately, it's Cancer, and it kicks your testicles into your stomach. It really does.
Nice. And you guys go do videos for this record? I think you guys did a lyrical video.
Yeah, there's a lyric video, isn't there, for the Amputate, which is good, And I think it's got the power. It's got what it for me. It's what I want to listen to if I want to listen to a Cancer album. And since I've been doing interviews, I've been asked, by people, how is it different from the other Cancer albums? Well, all the Cancer albums are different, in one way or another. But it's the format, the songwriting, and the way we do, it's song-orientated death metal, and that's what the trademark of the band's about.
And you guys have shows, festivals lined up? Because I know it's going to be that time of year where the festival season starts and everything.
We've got one in Antwerp, which is in Belgium, which is where the the people who went into the Congo came from. So that might be interesting. And we got one in Germany, one in Ireland. We've got one in a couple of in England. We've just done some shows in Italy, actually, playing the new stuff. We played Amputate, Inverted World, and a couple of others. And they went down really well with the crowd, and it was great stuff, because they could fit in really well in our set.
Yeah, when I hear Amputate, it kind of does. I could picture it going into the 90s. It could fall into that bracket, the Cancer sound. Speaking of sound, just for the gear people, I know you guys were BC Rich guys back when you guys first started out. What's your gear these days that you're using?
On that album, on the Amputate, on Inverted World, I used a Gibson Gothic Flying V with a Nazgul Seymour Duncan pickup and a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, which we reamped and put it into different cabs. So like a Marshall cab or a Mesa cab to get the different tones. The lead guitarist, he used a Sonar guitar, and he uses an SG, actually. He's got a Gibson SG that he likes to use with a Kemper system.
Yes, man. And, something that me and Ed always talk about on this show, I'll bring this to you too. Obviously when we were younger, all of us, because obviously we're not the spring chickens here. It was a different period of time, right? You put out albums and you had the fans took it in, they read the liner notes, they learned the songs. And now we live in a time period where you have probably a couple weeks before the next thing comes in, right? So how, like do you even care about that, or do you not even think about that? Because I always think about the releases now, because we read a lot of releases on here, and there's bands that we grew up listening to that, like, you mentioned Slayer, like Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits, and we know these back to front. The first Deicide, the first Cancer, the first Death, or we know these records. Now it almost feels like it's a time period where the records come out and then they kind of fall to the wayside.
And put it once, that'll do.
Yeah. And maybe that's streaming too, because I always say that a lot of the records you used to buy when you were a kid, the best songs were actually not the first song you heard from the record. It's when you start digging in the record and you find track 7 or 8. And everyone has different taste, but for me, some of the songs that nobody cared about on those deep records back in the day, I fucking loved them. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it has become, I agree with you. People need to, kind of listen to stuff. I think if they had to pay for it, like we did, they might, value it a bit more. It was kind of based on scarcity a bit, wasn't it? I mean, you got the music that you could afford, and what you couldn't afford, you get somebody to tape it. But now, I mean, with download streaming and all this, it's like you say, it's today's news is yesterday's fish and chip paper.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, yeah, we always talk about that, so I wanted to bring that up to you, man. And we're gonna let you get out of here in a minute. And John, so living in Spain, man, what can you tell us? How do you from difference from UK over there? You because you've been there for some time now.
Yeah, I've been here 20 years. 20 years. Yeah, I love it. It's nice for me being here. It gets nice and warm in Tampa, you get a fabulous
death hot.
You can appreciate it, and so I'm genetically kind of Scandinavian, kind of North English, Scottish. So I burn very quickly in Spain, but my wife's Spanish, and I like my lifestyle. We get good food, good weather, and that's all I can say, really.
Do you visit UK often? Do you, besides touring, do you go family over there still?
I sometimes go and see my mum and dad. See them at Christmas. So, But I know the last time I went there, so where my mum lives, where my mum and dad lives, they've got this. It's between Birmingham and Wales, and they live in these kind of valleys, and it's full of like mist and fog in the mornings. I'll go for a walk, for a couple of hours, come back, and I've got like bronchitis, because I'm on the paracetamols, within the penicillin, So that's the problem I have. And then, I do get a bit fed up of the cheese sandwiches,
Yeah, man. No, and John, we appreciate you giving us your time. You agreed to do it right away to come on the show, and we totally appreciate that here. For anybody who wants to find cancer-related news or cancer-related merch, where would they go to?
On the I suppose the cancer website, the official website. There should be some stuff there. If not, I think it'd be online. Yeah, it'd be online. You can get it.
I know you guys have a Bandcamp and stuff, or you guys just running the webpage?
I don't really have much to do with any of that, but I think Daniel. I'll have to ask him really, But I think you can get it through links, So
cool, man. Well, John, I think we've bugged you enough tonight or today, whatever time it is in your zone. We're all in different areas right now, but is there anything else you want to say before we let you get out of here?
Well, it's been a pleasure to do this, and I think that what you're doing with the Tampa Morgue is a credit to yourselves, and it's keeping alive a tremendous musical movement, and I commend you for it. I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thanks, dude. We definitely appreciate that, man. And we appreciate your time, and you're always welcome on here. If you guys ever need anything, and like I said, Cancer, new records coming out April 25th, 2025, if whoever's listening 10 years from now. But Inverted World on Peaceville Records. We're going to play Amputate on the way out of here. We're going to say goodbye to John, and then we'll be back, me and Ed, in a few minutes. John, Ed, anything you got to say over there?
No, I talked to him beforehand, and we did the Maryland Death Fest, and we were supposed to play California with you guys, but the hurricane took us out, we weren't able.
You were requested. I was talking to the fans, and they were saying, "Where's Monstrosity?" And it was
we were hunkering down because we were getting that was the first hurricane in how long, Tony, that actually was heading directly for us, and we haven't had that in that I can. I've been in Florida since I was 14, so this was the first one that was like, it's coming, and it did. And we both got
my shit got fucked up. My house,
and he was he was in Lithuania when it came, so at least he was
watching it on a TV.
5,000 miles away. I lived it, but it was. We were touch and go. The problem is we got two guys that don't live in Florida, so we could have flown out maybe, but trying to get them there, it just wasn't going to happen. So we were bummed because Dismember played and you guys played, and I was very. I was not happy, but what are you going to do when Mother Nature steps in? I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
It sucked.
An event, isn't it? That
I heard it was killer though, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, John, that's actually one thing I didn't ask you tonight at all. Were you hanging out at the Brass Mug, when you were over there at Morrisound recording?
The Brass Mug.
It's like it's like the CBGB of Tampa, pretty much. It's like. I mean, it's still there, but it's changed locations a few times, but it's pretty much like the historic venue for that area.
It's about 10 minutes. It's about 10 minutes from Morrisound. So it's literally.
I remember going to a bar. I do remember going to a bar, but I never asked what the name was. It could have been. So.
Yeah, it probably was, because that's the metal bar. That was the metal bar in Tampa.
Yeah, that is the place. But yeah, man, again, John, we thank you so much, dude. And we'll say goodbye to you in a minute. And we appreciate you, man.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks, John.
And like I said, new Cancer record, April 25th, 2025 on Peaceful Records called Inverted World. This is Amputate. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue after this track from Cancer. That was Cancer with Amputate from the upcoming record that's going to come out on April 25th to Inverted World from Cancer. And we want to thank John Walker for hanging out with us, giving us his time, and yeah, man, answering our questions. Ed, another one in the books, number 83. John was a great guest, man.
I agree. Both of us listened. You were in high school, which blows me away, to Cancer,
Yes.
All that time ago. And yeah, it was cool talking to him afterwards too. I enjoyed telling him my story. So
Yeah,
he thought it
yeah,
was funny because he told us, something that I thought was funny as shit too. So if you could only, if you guys want to go to our Patreon, we don't have one. I'm just kidding. But if you want to see the back stuff, for $2,000 sign up fee, you can hear all the stuff that you'll never get to hear, because a lot of times this stuff is so what do we call
Some
it?
of the best stories is always after, like, you get off the show,
Yeah.
like, you're done recording, and then, you know, you can kind of go back and forth and stuff. So you're right. It always,
Well, you know, because a lot of
it-
times, you know, you don't really expose people or because, you know, things happen. Like I've done shit. I'm sure somebody may have something that I did, you know, and it's like some people just are cool with throwing out that kind of shade, and other people's are like, yeah, whatever, dude. I'll tell
we
you.
try not to drag it out of people. So that's one thing we're not looking for. Like,
Yeah, I hear it on Rogan all the time. Guys like, dude, I can't say it here, but after the show, I'll tell you, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, fuck, I wish I could hear that after the show. Be a little,
yeah, that is a cool thing. I mean, we've got some great stories after the show where you're like,
Oh,
damn,
yeah.
man, you know, like, it's funny when we had Jill Whitlow on, you know, from Weird Science and stuff. Some of the stories she was telling us, like, I
Oh,
just can't
God,
forget
that was
now.
crazy.
Yeah, like I actually saw like a couple of the actors from the movies on a thing the other day, and the first thing I thought of was, oh, that's right, you know, because great stories, but you know, there's a reason that they're not told on the show.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
but yeah, no, John was
That was
great.
great.
Yeah, and we'll get you know, Daniel who helped us set that up, man. You know, we'll get him on here too when the album comes out. 'Cause it's out April 25th. So we'll bring him on here to hang out, man. Find out a little bit about him. I was surprised he actually listens. So when I got a hold of them, you know, I was trying to get a hold of John. You know, Daniel was the first person I talked to, and he actually listens to the show. I was kind of like, wow, man, that's killer, dude. I did not expect. You know, you just don't realize who's listening ever. So, you know, he's listening over to us over in Spain, and he actually has some nice things to say about you, Ed. So I think when we bring him on, he's going to try to blow up your head a little bit. So we're going to have to like, you know, cut off your mic or something. But nah, dude, we'll definitely get Daniel on here. We appreciate him for helping getting the ball rolling with getting John on. And it was, like I said, it took me back, man, because, you know, when it comes to Cancer, you think about, you know, the old records and stuff like that, especially the first three. I really was like, you know, Shadow Grip was great. And that new Amputate song, really, it sounds old school as hell. It's a great tune. So, you know, it was great having him on here. And we're working on some other guests too that we're definitely not going to announce right now, but we got some rare stuff coming up if everything works out, you know. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, but everything's going in the right direction right now. So there's going to be some cool stuff coming up. And Ed, anything else going on? Nothing. You know, I don't think we made it under 3 hours today.
I don't think so either.
Around there, but
you know, if we sit here and we try to force something, it's not going to be genuine.
Nope.
So I don't give a shit if it goes over 3 hours. I look at it like this: you're getting two dudes that are talking real deal stuff. You know, we're not. I don't have nothing written down here. I don't even. Shit, I used to keep notes, so I don't even have none of that. I just go by my
I've been
head
sick
now.
for 2 weeks during the last two episodes too, man. It's been a fucking hell ride. Like,
got that plague, man.
Yeah,
you're healthy,
like, you know,
and you're like probably one of the healthiest dudes that I personally know, eating wise, and except for
until you have children, though, that's the problem.
Yeah,
I have the
exactly.
3-year-old, and it's going to be 6 on Saturday. And it changes everything because, like you said, I'm always like trying to watch what I eat. I'm very active. I run. I do all these crazy things, and still the kid plagues get you. So,
well, I will tell you, this week is probably the first week that I've eaten pretty healthy because my wife's not here. She refused. You know, she'll when we were doing like keto, she would do it, but she would always be like, "Oh, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that." And I'm like, "Well, then you're not really doing keto." Because cookies aren't on the list. Brownies aren't on the list. They do have a keto brownie mix here. So you go eat those. Those don't taste the same. I'm like, well, fuck off. What do you want me to tell you? I mean, you got to make
she's going to bring you some Vegas funk back. You know, those flights, man. You're going to she'll bring you home a nice little...
Oh my God. She's like, are you just going to pick me up or are you going to come in and wait for me? I'm like, at 4:20 in the morning, you want me to, what? But I'm probably going to do it because, you want to be there when she gets off the plane and show her how much you love her. And
get one of those signs, man, and just write something awful on it.
So we were going to get a billboard sign. If she had come back a regular time, we had it, like we saw it on the thing.
Mail
welcome
order
back
bride.
From prison. No, welcome back from prison. Welcome back from Vegas. It's been a long 6 years you were in prison, something like that,
Yeah, you should definitely. I know your wife should probably knock your ass right out in the the airport. But
yeah, she's not one for the practical joke. I will tell you that. The only cool thing is she's on Spirit, so there's no luggage. So literally, once I grab her, we can just go right to the car. I don't have to go down and wait for the fucking luggage to come through. And just
was she nervous to fly at all? Because the last like 2 months, like every plane's been like doing some weird shit, catching on fire, flipping over.
The problem is all the planes going out to Vegas or out west, because her sister was actually flying out of Atlanta. They were all delayed. So I think that pissed her off because she didn't want to sit there by herself. But of course, she went and bought a $10 piece of pizza, from the fucking airport. Because
the airport food is ridiculously expensive.
It's like, stupid. But and the flight out there, when you get there, you gain time, and when you come back, you lose time. It's kind of like going to Europe. When I go to Europe, I lose 8 hours, but when I get home, I get it's like I just literally left Europe. So I don't know. It's all good, man. I'm just we're going on vacation in June, so that's all I'm looking forward to. I rented a house in Orlando, an actual house, so we're going to go up there.
You did that last year too.
We did. We stayed at like a townhome that had a water park, but now we're at the point where it's like the water park is kind of overplayed. Too many people just being stupid. Like we were walking around some, where you get in the tube, the what do they call it, the lazy river kind of thing, and I wasn't in a tube because I'm not getting in a tube, and the lady was screaming at me. Some old lady in the fucking thing, not even the people that run it. Some old lady screaming at me that I need a tube. And I'm like, mind your fucking business. And
did you used to go to Action Park when you were a kid?
Do we go to where? Oh yeah.
Action Park, which was like the most, they did a documentary on that place because it was so unsafe, up in Jersey, me, like as everybody knows who listens to our show, me and Ed are born in New Jersey, and there was great adventure, but Action Park was like the Wild West.
You had Action Park, and then we had where I live, like literally 20 minutes from my house was Keensburg, and they had an amusement park at Keensburg because it was.
Oh, I never was there.
Yeah, and dude, some of those rides, I mean, they were fixed, so it wasn't like a carnival, where is it going to come unbolted because the guy was fucking 3 sheets. But some of those rides were like very questionable back then, and that was back then. But
I never went to that area because I grew up in Seaside and Toms River, and
you were south.
Yeah, so we had the boardwalk there, so it was almost like, especially back then in the 80s and stuff, as you know, because you spent time on that boardwalk, Point Pleasant or Seaside. I don't know if Seaside was better than Point Pleasant back then. I used to work up on that boardwalk, but you had all the Union Jacks with that's where I would get a lot of my tapes and records from, the wheels and stuff, the quarter wheels, which I'm sure quarter wheels don't even exist anymore. It's got to be like $1 wheel or some shit like that. But it's a great time to be alive, man, because that's when music was so different than now. It was exciting. Everything was.
I can remember at Keensburg, they had the thing where, you do things to win prizes, and they had like the Kiss mirrors. In the mirrors with the Kiss, and then they had the one with them, Dynasty, with them on the fucking on the cover put onto an actual like mirror. I don't know how they used to do it back, but that's what you could win. They don't do that shit no more.
They sell those on eBay now, though. They call them carnival mirrors, I think. But,
right.
I know exactly what you're talking about because believe it or not, I had a shout.
I won a bunch of them. Yeah. I had them. I don't know what happened to them because we're talking 1983, which is just to hear that number is ridiculous. I mean, fuck, I'm old.
That was my first job. Actually, was on that boardwalk in Seaside. It was at a balloon stand, and it had you would throw darts at balloons to win prizes.
That's what it was.
And it was rigged, man, because everything was you had small, medium, or large prizes, but they were all smalls, really.
Yeah, really.
I had to have to stand there with a microphone and talk people into coming over, and but it was a great time. There was no cell phones, there was none of that stuff. Pay phones were everywhere if you wanted to use any kind of phone, and that was just a different time period. But that was the old back in the Jersey days. But so Ed, anything else? Yeah, I mean, wrap this one up. What do you think?
Yep, let's do it.
Episode 83. Episode 83. And again, everybody who listens to us, we always appreciate you. Anybody who writes us or sends us stuff, it's we definitely, feel free to always do that. Instagram or thetampamorgue@gmail.com. Again, Jeff Tate tickets, the last couple of days for those over on the Instagram page for Friday, April 4th. And Ed, I think that's all I have. If you got anything else.
Nope, I'm good. Great interview.
Definitely. Again, thanks to John Walker of Cancer for coming and hanging out. We'll be back next week, of course. Ed, enjoy time with your wife, picking her up. And everybody else, we appreciate you listening. And Ed, we're out of here. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
This is King Fally from Deceased, and you just listened to another episode of the Tampa Morgue. Tune in next week and stay fucking dead.